Hey, Fitzy here, back at the game with another one. Rear quarter panel, rear guard, whatever you want to call it, same difference. Ever have holes in quarter panels in along here, and the wheel wells were gone? This one here had them, and I made a new patch panel for it. I'm going to show you how I made it. Stick around. Alright, let's get started on this side now. What I'm going to do here first is I'm going to remove everything here and take off them old body side moldings, they're junk anyway. And I'm going to strip it from about here down. I'm going to clean everything up, clean up down around here. I'm not going to get into the rocker panel, I'm only going to go as far as there because the rocker's separate again. Clean up all the back side here, get everything stripped off this and grind it down so I got a full quarter panel to see how bad it is. And we'll go from there, so when I comes back, this will be all grinded down. Well, I went ahead and I managed to play around with it enough, and I managed to get the side glasses out of the car, or thus one side glass out of the car using the old rubber tool, and the rubber's in good shape. Any guys that are into this Toyota stuff, I'm looking for, and I'll be looking for, is the windshield rubbers. If you have a link or know of a supplier where I can get these rubbers, I greatly appreciate it. Also, some small trinkets. Anybody got parts cars? That's one of them side vents is broke off. When I took it off, it broke. So, you know, I'm looking for small bits and pieces for the car, just cosmetic stuff. Anyway, okay, I got the quarter panel stripped off. It's all stripped down, and I got the rust removed. I took it all out down with a 24 grit. Just a quick recap. I used a 24 grit large grinder on the flat surfaces, and then after it was all removed, I turned around and went over it, the heavy pitted rust with the cutting wheel. I just slightly using it to grind it. Basically, all I did was this. I just took that there and just went like that, and scraped it across it like that. Now, there's proper ways. Fellas would say, why don't you sandblast it, or you're ruining the car because it's going to be all wavy. No, it's nice and straight. It's got scratches in it now. I can guarantee you this car is going to be straight as a whip when it's done. It's just that there's a lot of heavy pitted rust. You can see it here on the car, and this is where I'm to now with it. So I got a good majority of it removed. I'm going to be treating this metal before I do anything else with it, before I go any further. But hauling this window out, I hauled it out because I seen this little spot here. And then I found this. Like, I can't believe the places that this car rusts out. This is all in behind. Look how good the shape this is in. That's mint. And then you come across here and big old hole in the corner. More videos. But it's strange how the car rusts out, because I was looking at the rocker panels on this car, and if you look at them, the rockers are good. The rocker panel's all the way along. Right there, she has a spot, but back there is good. Like, I'm totally amazed at how odd this car rusted out. I'm used to nothing being down here, and then all this up here being mint. But I'm having issues with rust around the top sides of the car, and it's just like, you know, man, oh man, it's different. But anyway, let's get to our project. Let's start making this panel. As you can see, again, I never cut nothing out of it. I'm leaving it there as a template. There's a number of different ways that people would attack this. I've tried it a number of different ways over the years. This is basically the same process for repairing almost anything. Even a dog's leg on a car will be the same process. We had this little crease here that runs along here. That runs right on through the whole piece. You would think that you'd be able to cut this piece, make a piece here, and then bend this flange flat, and it had that nice little crease there. The problem I run into that is when you start changing the angles of the metals, this here has a tendency to do this, and there's a lot of work involved in working it. And it's very hard to get a real nice crisp edge. So I'm going to do the same process that I've always done, which I find you get a cleaner finish when it's done. Is I'm going to weld right through that little crease. I'm going to make up this piece here, I'm going to make up this piece here, and I'm going to make up this piece here. And I'm going to weld all three of them together and grind and dress them. So that way I'll have enough material where that crease is to, that I can actually shape the actual line, so I'll get a nice crisp line there. If you just folded it over, it'd be folded over and it'll probably have this little thing going on in a certain degree. You can actually take a bead roller also and probably run a bead through it. If you could, like a roll die, you could probably get down that. I haven't got a roll die, okay? And a lot of us haven't got bead rollers. I'm doing this with just basic tools, with what I got kicking around, a grinder and a MIG welder, that's it. So this is what we're gonna do. First thing I'll do now is I'm gonna make this piece here, the upper section. I'm going to make a panel, cut it bigger and everything, and just and cut it and fit it so that it rolls along here. I'm going to come down probably 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch off this rolled edge here and join there. I'm going to go over here about 1.5 inches and down here about 1.5 inches to get clear all this rust. So I'm going to go cut a piece out now to fit into that. All I did, I took a scrap piece of steel, laid it up against the car like that there, clamped it in place there, took a marker and marked it around there to get the wheel lip. So I ended up with a mark like this here around it. Then what I did, I measured from here up to here where I wanted to, which is about 2 1/4 inches. Then I measured from the line up, all along there, and measured up 2 1/4 inches. Now I'll mark all that line there and I'll cut this piece here out, and I'll start with that piece there. And I got the piece cut out, and I test fitted it. I ended up curving the panel, just a small bit, to fit on that. Now, quick little note, this is 18 gauge metal. And this is probably 22 gauge metal. I like working with heavier gauge steels because it gives me room to grind this panel and to fit this better. And it's a lot easier when you're welding it that you run your welds from the heavier gauge steel to the lighter gauge steel, because trying to weld two of these panels together, 22 gauge, it becomes trouble. So using a heavier gauge steel, it can help get with the welding process. So I just rolled it and I fit it in place. Now what I got to do now is I got to figure out this lip here. As you can see that I can roll this lip down, but I know I'm going to run into trouble. So I'm going to clamp this in place here now, and then I'm going to mark it and see for the actual lip that I'm going to cut off. Here's all I did, is I went and curved the panel. I also cut it off a small bit, made it shorter, didn't need it all. I'm out past where the rust is to about 1.5 inches here, and about 1.5 inches here, and I'm up down about 1/4 of an inch from the upper lip, which gives me plenty. I went ahead then and I curved the panel so it fit. As you can see, if you look down, this here has this sort of a curve going on it. So I curved it so it fit nice. Then I clamped it with 3 clamps, and then I put 3 Klinkos in it, because I'm going to be putting this on, taking this off numerous times. Now when you look at it this way, you can see that it just comes straight down and then it sticks off. This here turns flat on us. So what I got to do now is I got to creep up on it. I got to mark this here and try to get the crease, the line that I'm after, to this line here. This is the one I got to chase, come up now to try to find. So I'll come up and I'll mark it and I'll cut it and trim it a few times to get it to where I like it. Take your time doing this part here, because if you try to get it in one cut, you'll either cut it too short in here and then you'll be up inside the panel and then you're going to have to start all over again. So just trim it little bit by little bit till you start to see that upper edge to fit it nice. Right? Now you can make templates for this. It's probably better if you want to. I don't make cardboard templates. It'll probably be better in a situation like this. This is your first time doing it. If you made a nice little template of that there with that wheel arch in it, you'd have an easier time finding that there. In my case, I just comes up on it. I'm so used to doing it, I don't use cardboard templates. But if it's your first time at it, take your time, make a cardboard template for it so you can get it fitting in there nicer. Now this is my first cut. I haven't got it all the way up there yet, so I trimmed it back. Now I'm going to show you something here. This is the piece that I cut off the bottom of this panel here. Now, some people would say, well, just fall over the edge and get that crease. Just watch what happens. I'm gonna line up the metal here, so it's flush here, and just watch the middle, what goes on when I lays this flat against this panel. Look at the gap. Now that was cut straight off of this panel this way. But now where I'm adding it to it, in the middle it has to stretch out. So when you're folding this out here, to fold over this edge, this panel here is going to want to go in, because this here section has got to be stretched. You know, as you can see right here in the middle. Okay, so I got it fitting in place here now. And after going back 3 and 4 times, taking my time, creeping up on getting this line here line up. And what I'm using this outer edge here to line up this here, because I notice this distance remains the same throughout here. Up here, this panel here gets wider as it gets to the top, and then it gets narrower as it comes down. So you can't go by this up here. So I'm going by this wheel lip here. So what I got, now that I got that done, I'm happy where it's going to be at. The next thing is now, is you look at it here. This panel here is not flat, okay? If you look at it, it's got a crown on it. And so that crown goes right on around that whole works. If you look here, you can see that it's not sitting properly on it. And it sticks off a bit here on the bottom side, a good bit. So what I got to do now is I got to go back and I got to put a small crown on this all the way through that entire piece. So let's go over the bench and do that. Now here's all I'm going to use. There's a crown on my large voice. I'm going to hold the panel. I marked the outside of it, so this is the outside of the panel, so I didn't flip it around backwards and I brought it over here. Trust me, I've done that because I've after fooling this up many a time. But all I'm doing is I'm laying the panel flat into that little concave, and I'm going to hammer it across here and rotate it through. Between the crown and the hammer, and that crown on the voice, it's hard to see it there, but if you look at it, there is a slight crown, the full length of that. Probably see it better on this side here. There's a slight crown on that now. Now I'm happy with how that sits there now. I went back again, I come over and I test fitted, and then this end here was good, but this end over here needed a bit more crown, so I went back and repeated the same process and put a bit more crown on it up here. So now I got a nice roll on that entire panel going along there. Now that, again, that's something that would be hard to do if you try to make all this in one piece. So now I got this piece made, it's in place. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make this piece here to come up to it and weld to it. I was sizing up using that piece there, and it's not going to work because when I grinds off this here side, it's going to be too short. But I'm going to use it as a template. I'm going to lay it on this piece of scrap metal here now, bring it up a bit so I got lots of room on the bottom side of it. And I'm going to scribe along that, cut a larger piece out. And because this upper edge don't fit good, I'll just grind down these edges here so it'll fit, but I'll be close to where it should be. Now, after trimming the piece, and fitting it, and trimming it, and fitting it, I got to where I likes it. It's a bit longer. I'm not concerned about that right now. My whole goal is now is to make this, to get this crease here right nice going around here. I'm not going to worry about the bottom yet. I took this off and tweaked this a couple of more times because I didn't like the fit. And like if you look down now, you have to look across this way here, make sure that the panel is straight this way. Right? Look across it that way. Right? Look at it a number of different angles. Make sure that this lip is not going in all the way along. It's nice when I start it with a flat piece of steel because then I didn't tweak it or nothing. And that way it would just sit on its own. So I'm happy where we're at to there now. So I'm going to go ahead now and start tack welding that together. Leave the panel mounted on the car, tack weld it every inch or so, cool it down, and then go back and start welding again. It's probably best to weld this all together on the outside on the car because if you took it off and laid it on the bench, it'll tendency to want to move. Everything's held in place here with the voice grips and whatnot, so it's got a tendency to keep its shape. So just go back, take your time, weld a bit, cool it off with blowgun, with air, and then go back and weld some more. Okay, I got it welded inside and out. You will find that when you weld it on the car, when you take it off, because it's very hard to control it, it would tendency to want to bow on you this way. What I went and did is I come over here then on the bench, and I took a pair of voice grips, and then I clamped it in place here on the voice, right? And put it on the edge like that there, and then clamped it here in the middle, just like that. And then I went ahead and welded the inside, because you're welding two pieces of metal together, and it's going to want to pull away from itself every time you're doing it. So after it was all welded up, I had a look at it. It was pretty good. I just had to do a small bit of dollying on it. But this here will have a tendency to want to curvature on you. Just take your time with the welding. Cool it. The more heat you put in it, the worse the curve is going to be. It's very hard not to get a little bit of a curve, so it's going to need a little bit of work. So now all I'm going to do now, I'm going to grind all this up and get this ready to fit this back on the car and dress the other side and get that nice crease in it. I got the inside grind down with a stone, and I just want to stop here and show you what I've got done. On the outside here, all I do with this, I won't touch a stone on this. I'll take my time and do this with I have a 24 grit pad on my air grinder. and I'll grind this down here. Now, the trick to this is to grind on the plane that you're working from. So I'll always leave my last one, this one here, to last, and I'll grind this here so I'm happy with it. If you look at it, you can see now this is all gone flush all along here, right? So now what I'll do now is I'll turn the panel around and I'll start cutting this one flat. Like when I'm cutting this here, I'm holding the grinder at an angle like this and going along like this here. I'm not worried about rounding it out or anything like that. I'm just holding it and getting that flat this way. So then I'll hold it up here flat and I'll hold it flat. Try to get yourself a really sharp line going along here. That way you can actually see how straight it is and how well it flows. If you keep rounding it out, you're not going to see it. So, you know, always work it so that you got a nice crisp line there. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it there or not, but here it is now. I got to grind it down flat on this side here, and I got some of this left alone just to show you what's going to go. Now, if you look closely at it here now, this line, you guys see it. It's high here, and it drops, and then it goes up again. I can work this line now that I can see it. So I'll concentrate on getting everything like this thin, and then I'll adjust it so that the line is nice and crisp rolling right along there. I'll grind this side some more, and then I'll come back and grind this side some more if I need be. There's lots of material. There's reason why I'm going with the 18 gauge, right? So I'll go ahead and I'll finish all this off, and I'll bring it back and show you what it looks like. So here it is, all grind up. Right. Just smooth that. I'll finish that off with a bit of 100 or something. That's all roughed in with 24. But I'm happy with the line where it goes to the inside. I never fully grinded that off. I want to leave some meat in behind it. And you can see where I re-welded it outside a few spots that I didn't like, right? But you got to, and you can see the shape of it, right? It's not a flat piece. You could make this on an English wheel and on a bead roller. And what if you haven't got an English wheel and you haven't got a bead roller? What do? You make do. And there it is, fitting on her. So that's all one piece. I'm quite happy with the way it's shaped, the way it follows along. So now what I got done, I scribed it on the back side where the original one was. Now the trick with this is, when you go to weld this in place, the cut and bolt on this here, what's going to happen here is that all this here is going to fall inward. So like if you had to weld a piece flush to this here like I done on top, the problem you're going to run into is that when you flush mount this piece is going to stick down. So when I cut this off, I want to cut this off so it's perfectly in line with that. So when I cut this off, it'll fall back, and I'm going to weld the bottom piece, not on the outside, but on the inside edge of it here, like so, is what I'm going to do with it. And that way it'll be the same height as this here. So when this all falls back in, it'll just go in. There's a scribe line that I put in there. Now I'm not going to cut that direct up to that. I'm going to just cut below it, between that scribe line and the marker there, and cut it off there. And then what I'm going to do, when it fits on the car, I'll take the grinder and I'll grind it to where I'm happy with it. Clamp down again, and it's just a little bit left there now. What I'll do now is I'll just take the grinder self, and I'll just grind along that there, and I'll use the car as my guide to see where I want it to be, and I'll grind it back till I'm happy with it. All I want to do now is I got that laid here. Remember, I grind this off flush here, so I want to lay the panel against this here, not against this here, right? So in other words, I got a piece of scrap here I found underneath the bench. I went and cut it off the length, and then I curved it to the shape that I wanted. And I don't want this here to lay on top of this, like so. I want this to lay this way out. So I'll lay this against it here, and I'll weld that right down around there, because that's the height or depth that that's got to be along here. You can see it here now. Here's the outside piece, and this here is up against it. So this here now is the height of the wheel well that's in the car. And I just tack welded all the way down around there. So now I'll go ahead now and I'll weld all that up. And I'll weld the inside, and then I'll grind this outside here so it looks good on the outside edge, and then I'll cut that off. So I got the panel made up, and I got the lip cut off, but I made it wider. I'll trim that up when I put it on the car. And I have this spot here marked. You see it there, ready to be scribed and cut. And focus, and you can see the other scribe line there. Now here in the case, because of this car that I'm doing, I got no inner wheelhouse. Here's now, we got the piece made. All I do here now is I cut up here and I cut this section out of here, okay? And I'd come up close to these holes here and I'd cut that off up along there and remove that piece. I have it so that I can fit my new panel in place. Then what I would do is I go in behind and I repair the wheelhouse using the panel as a guide. So I'll have something to go up there and I can fit it to it and have it so that it'll actually weld to it after the fact. So like a lot of times people try to build the inner panels first. I prefer to build the outer quarter panel, right? Make the piece fit there and have it so that I can test fit it and put it on, and then I will build the inner structure to fit the outer piece that you got made. Now I have this much of it removed, all out of the way, and I still have them 3 points that I got it mounted to, still in place. So then I got a nice fit here, and this here flows this way, and this here flows here, and then everything's going along nice. Now I'm going to be doing a cut and butt up here. You probably can't really do that on a car, but this is the process. I'll do the same process if I had a bit of wheelhouse. Now I'll show you a trick. Most times you turn around and your wheelhouse, when you're doing repairs like this here, and your inner wheelhouse is bad, your outer panel will probably be worse than the inner one. So usually I take it down to where the wheelhouse is good. Sometimes there's probably nothing there at all and you have to make the whole wheelhouse, same process. But just for argument's sake, if this panel here was gone this big, the inner structure will probably only be gone in this section here for the inner wheelhouse. So you got to make that piece. All you will do is use the panel that you just made, okay? You'll make your piece to put it on top of it. Where's the old quarter panel? There it is. We'll use that as an example. All you would do is you make an inner structure that'll fit in here and then go up and make it a little bit longer and everything. It hasn't got to be the same shape as this because it's a wheelhouse. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to make something like that. Same thing. Have it so that it fits in there. So it fits in there nice and nice. And you can spot weld it after the fact and leave this a little bit long on the top here and a little bit longer on the sides. And then you just take that piece that you made and you'd bring it over here and you'd fit it in your wheelhouse and weld it on. And that's how you'd fix that section. If I ever gets one that I got to do repairs on, I'll do that. But this is my race car, and I'm putting full wheel tubs in it, so this here is not going to matter on this. Okay, I position it in place, and I tack this corner here, and I tack this corner here, lined up in there, so this here arch looks nice. And then I went up and I clamped it in place, and I tack welded it in place here. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a cut and butt. In the case of the regular wheel weld thing, you would have to mark this and then cut it and trim it and to fit as you go, because you won't be able to get at the inside of it with the wheel well in place. I've talked about like starting from the inside and working your way out. In the case of a wheel arch, wheel well, or rear guard as some of you calls it, yes, you work from the inside out, but you've got to start on the outside to make the outside piece, then work inside, get that straightened away, and then come back out again. Because it's hard to make that inner wheel arch if you haven't got nothing on the outside. Now that you got something on the outside, now you can form it to the inside piece of it as you're going. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to cut and butt all this in place here now and get this finished up. Have it all tacked in place, all cut and butt, all set up there now. Quick little note that when you're doing this stuff, don't go welding this stuff or your wheel welds. None of that, do that last. Because what tends to happen when you weld down these sections here, this will want to pull in, and that'll give you the opportunity to close up this gap by pulling out on the panel. If you weld this up now and this pulls in, you'll never get it. It'll be very hard to repair. So I usually weld all this stuff through the outside faces of it first, and then make sure that I'm happy with looking down this, because if you look down it, it looks good there now, right? So what I'll do now is I'll go in and I'll weld all this up solid and grind and dress it all so I'm happy with it, and then I'll weld up these two sections here, and then after the fact, if I had a wheelhouse in it, I'll weld them in, right? I always do this stuff in here last. Leave it all alone to the last of it, because if you runs into any issues, you can pry this back and poke stuff up in behind it to push out on this if you got any issues here. Because right here and right here is where you're going to find your problems. There it is, all welded in, finished up. Nice uniform shape. You can see a nice little lip going around her and a crown on the panel. Look down this way, it looks good. Over here, I have one little low spot right there that's fighting me. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to get into it because the problem you're running into is you're dealing with thinner metals. You start working areas, you start blowing holes in it. Ask me how I know. Right, there's the wheel well. All well in place. Where's the join? Right there. Yeah. Anyway, that's another one. Hope the tips were good, and until next time.